Do you like movies and games also? Listen, so much more they all know. Pyro, Lotus, and friends, welcome to Corrective Consciousness.
Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 47, the podcast about our lives and love of pop culture. I am your host, Lotus Prince, and this is...
PyroJackFrost, back from the dead.
Whoa.
And OldManStompy, you can take a wild guess, since Vice didn't kick off the show, that he won't be appearing in any of the segments today.
Yeah, OldManStompy has 2 weeks in a row. He's slowly taken over.
That's the plan.
Yes.
We're slowly weaning Vice out of this.
Exactly.
Or me, depending on how you look at it.
Soon it will be...
Weaning Vice out of his own podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Soon it'll be our podcast, and then we will rule the world. Well, anyway, as for what we did this week, would you care to kick it off?
All right. I have a lot that I did, but not a lot of different things to talk about. More that I accomplished a lot. So I beat Virtue's Last Reward.
Nice.
I got the platinum. It's kind of hard to not get the platinum in that game if you do everything. It was good, but weird. Like, the whole time travel stuff is really, really complicated. Did you beat it, OldManStompy?
I also got the platinum. Like you said, it's pretty hard not to. All you have to do is do all the puzzles, and then you get the platinum. And you have to watch all the storyline sequences, which is, I mean, why are you playing a visual novel if not to play the storyline sequences?
I like how there's like 5,000 different endings in the game.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of them... So, like, I remember every path in the game has, like, a good ending and a bad ending. And the good ending is only good, really, because it progresses the story. And sometimes what happens in the bad ending, like... What happens in the good ending is, like, way worse than what happens in the bad ending, but just doesn't like, make you any progress in deciphering the mysteries.
One thing I mentioned last time that really... didn't, like, annoy me or anything, but found kind of weird is when someone else escapes. I guess it kind of makes sense when you see the actual ending, but when anyone else escapes and they say, oh, we're going to save you. We're going to call people to get help. And then it's just like the end. It's like, oh, so they don't save us?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense now that I've beaten it, but...
Yeah, well, so I like the games just because in, I think, every game written by this guy, I forget his name, Uchikose, I think is his last name. Like, there's always this really big twist based around the viewpoint of the player character. And Virtue's Last Reward is no exception, to the point where, like, it leads into Zero Time Dilemma as the next game in the series. And
it does? Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, it definitely ends on a pretty significant cliffhanger. Like, 999 was kind of made without the intention of turning it into a trilogy, but Virtue's Last Reward is definitely like the Matrix Reloaded of the series. Like,
okay.
And that's why like, it took a really long time for Zero Time Dilemma to come out. You know, it was in development hell for a really long time because the first two games didn't do too well in Japan. And so it was really exciting to know that we were actually going to get the honest conclusion to the story. And the third game, it definitely, like, it actually has a third-person perspective. So you're wondering, like, the first two games, they really play with the player viewpoint. It's a mechanic in the game and part of the storyline. And, like, trying to figure out what they're doing in the third game, in that sense, in a third-person game instead of a first-person game, is interesting. And I think he knows that people who have followed the series expect this to happen.
It's like the story itself, the overall plot I loved, but the dialogue I felt was really poorly done. in several aspects. One is they repeat dialogue so many times. It's so annoying. And the thing is, like, they allow you to skip text that you've already seen. But if a different character is saying the same thing, you can't skip it because they're skipping the character's dialogue, not
the new time that text box shows up.
Plus, they over-explain a lot of things. And then it's just,
There are some chapters in all the games that kind of sound like he read a Wikipedia article on the thing that he wants to talk about. And you're just listening to a character tell it back to you.
Yeah, but like the overall plot I liked, even though at the end it got kind of convoluted with the whole rubber banding of time. But it was a fun game. I liked it for the escape rooms. The last one I thought was really cool, the Q room or whatever it was called.
Oh
The
yeah.
one with all the white walls. That was really cool. But overall, it made me want to play the other ones. When I have time again, I might go to 999 or Zero Time Dilemma.
So you never played 999?
I never played it, but I
Wow.
know I kind of got some spoiled when I played Virtue's Last Reward. But the thing is, I got Virtue's Last Reward free on PS Plus.
Oh, I see.
So I needed a game to play on the subway, so I'm like, sure, I'll play this game. And I'm like, I don't care about playing 999, but through playing, I'm like, I kind of want to play 999 now.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, like a couple of major things.
Yeah, I know. We're spoiled.
Yeah. But it's fine.
But again, it's more for the journey, I think, too, and the escape rooms. So I'm hoping that'll be enough. Yeah, but it's another reason why I wanted to play it is because I loved the Danganronpa games, at least 1 and 2.
Right.
So it made me want to play that.
So
And
as a recommendation,
I did-
if you're planning on going back to 999, I would almost recommend getting the book variant. There's a variant of it. I think it's iOS. It's been released on iOS, which is just the storyline of 999.
Yeah, there's no puzzles.
And the puzzles, they aren't nearly as good as the Virtue's Last Reward or Zero Time Dilemma puzzles. They're like barely puzzles at all. They're just point and click, like touch things and move them to other places, and there isn't a lot of thought behind it, except maybe for the last 1 or 2 rooms. So if you just want to catch up on the storyline because you've already played Virtue's Last Reward, you should play the 999, the novel version, if you have it available to you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look into that. So the next game, so I platinumed that, and then I
Okay.
platinumed another Vita game as well. So I don't know if either of you heard of Severed.
Maybe the title, but I don't know anything about it.
I have not. I'd be happy to hear about it.
So Vice has actually been telling me to play it for a while, or at least he's been saying it's a good game for a while. When I keep saying there's a Vita game I want to play, and he's like, play Severed. So it's a very touch-based game. The whole idea is it's like a first-person dungeon crawler, you could kind of say. You're playing as a girl whose arm got chopped off, and her parents are lost, and she's in this other world, and she needs to find her parents and her brother. And through it, you encounter monsters, and you swipe to attack them, but you have to make sure to swipe their weak points, you could say, or the parts they're not defending. And if you swipe their hands when they're trying to attack you, you basically block their attacks. And it gets kind of timing based, and it can get really hard because it's first person view, and monsters are all around you. So later in the game you have to keep moving the camera to make sure you're hitting everyone so they're not hitting you, and it gets kind of interesting. And it's very much like I'm getting kind of tired of the term Metroidvania, but it's kind of like that in the sense of you're exploring a dungeon, let's say, and you need to find new abilities that'll let you get to other areas. It was a really short game. I platinumed it in like 6 hours, but it was actually really fun. And trying to think of more about it that's interesting. I like the aesthetics of it are really good. It's dark, but not like dark. It's not like gory. Although it is pretty cool because part of the game, when you kill enemies, if you increase what's called a focus meter enough, then you can basically sever the enemies and basically harvest their parts to upgrade your stats.
Damn.
I see. Do you ever like attach the arm to like your severed arm or something? Like is that?
Later in the game, you get an arm.
Oh, I see.
And it's like story related.
Okay,
But
so-
no, apparently it takes like 4 eyeballs and 10 wings to learn how to recover more health when you attack enemies.
Sure.
Or something like that.
just like in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's because she's actually eating the parts, not that she's fusing them.
I see.
Okay.
Because the whole part, you meet another character in it, and you can see her every now and then munching on enemies, like parts, because she's survived there for so long. That's kind of what it comes down to.
Brutal.
But the enemy designs are interesting, if not strange. The bosses are kind of cool. It's challenging, but not unfairly difficult. And the abilities, you feel like you're growing as a character, and there's lots of cool abilities that you unlock. So I would recommend, if you have a Vita, to check it out. It's not that expensive. I think it's also on iPhone, because I think that's what Vice wanted me to play. Like, that's when he played it, was on iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
And but I don't think it's on Android. So if you don't have an iPhone, you might have to get the Vita version.
Okay.
And then, finally, a game that I did not platinum, but did finally beat, and apparently it took me 160 hours, was Persona 5.
Nice. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Although a lot of that 160 hours was AFKing. Like doing laundry while it's still on, or helping out otherwise around the house. So I know it took me over 100 hours, and I automatically started a second playthrough.
Are you going for the platinum?
I am. I am only missing, not including the platinum itself, I'm only missing 3 trophies, which really just are basically Persona related. If I finish the compendium and basically fuse all the personas that exist, then I've gotten and beaten a secret boss. Then I've beaten. Then I've platinumed the game.
Of course, there's a secret boss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's actually, I kind of spoiled something for myself. I didn't play them yet, but so one cool thing about the game, I kind of want to talk more about this on the reactive consciousness when we have more time. But one cool thing that I saw is, so all of your characters, when you knock down all the enemies, just like Persona 3 and 4, you can do what's called an all-out attack, which all your characters basically pummel the enemies, and you basically instant kill most enemies. So apparently the secret boss, and this is something that you don't see coming, if they knock down all of your characters, or if there's another thing that might happen, they all-out attack you and instant kill you.
It's pretty brutal.
Oh, so there's like time limits. And a lot of the secret bosses in Persona, you have like 10 rounds between phases. And if you don't get to the next phase, basically, or if they knock down all your party members, they all out attack you and just game over. It's like, okay,
you know what
wow.
that reminds me of Odin in a couple of the Final Fantasy games. Like, I remember, I think you had maybe like 5 or 10 minutes to beat Odin in Final Fantasy V, or else he takes you out. But the first time I'd ever experienced Odin, I was watching our friend Perry play Final Fantasy VIII back when we were in high school, and there was Odin's Tower. And you could do various things in the game to, I think, increase the amount of time you have to beat it. But I want to say it was something like you have 30 minutes to beat the tower and then Odin. And it was
I remember that.
Yeah, it was super badass too, because when you finally make it to Odin, he just sits there and doesn't do anything. But he's just hard to kill because he's got a lot of HP. And the first time Perry was fighting him, he ran out of time during the fight, and Odin just Zanteskins, and just his whole party's just cut in half and game over. We're like, what? Because we had no idea that was the thing that could happen. It was amazing.
It's like the original version of a DPS check before MMOs are really a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right?
So the only other thing that I did this week, kind of very briefly started tonight, was now I want to play Final Fantasy XIV again. Like, get back into it. Because I know that I played it for a while and kind of put Persona 5 on break and then said, you know what, I had to just beat Persona 5. So now I'm back on Final Fantasy XIV. I transferred my character to Ultros so I can join OldManStompy and Minty Mints and her sister and all that sort of stuff.
And Mr. Ryu is on Ultros now.
And Mr. Ryu, yeah. So I transferred my character today, and I logged in for a little bit. Probably get on a little bit tomorrow or some other time this week because there's a very busy week. But yeah, that's my weeks. So OldManStompy, why don't you go next?
So that's a good segue, right? Because the predominant thing I've been doing all week, or at least all of last week, was whenever I had a spare moment, I was playing Final Fantasy XIV. I was sort of desperately trying to kick and claw back up to somewhere close to where like you and Mr. Ryu were. How far were you before you stopped playing the last time?
I think I was level like 40 or 41.
Okay, so not the end of even the 2.0 storyline.
Definitely not. I forget what dungeon I was on.
Okay.
But it was definitely a dungeon that I was just like, you know what, I don't want to do dungeons right now. And I just stopped playing for a while because of it.
Yeah, so just to give an idea of the structure to our listeners, so when A Realm Reborn came out, that was considered the 2.0 storyline. It was pretty long. It had quests that brought you all the way up to level 50, and it's actually pretty easy just by doing the quests and some of the side quests that spawn as you're going through the main quest line to get to level 50 around the time you reach the end of that storyline. And then there were like 5 content patches, so there's like a 2.1 to 2.5 storyline, and then the expansion Heavensward came out, that was 3.0, and now there's content 3.1 to 3.5, and at the end of that...
It's actually really more stranger than that. So it is 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.5, and then 3.55, and then they're going to 4.0. The same with 2.0 is 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 2.55, and let's just go right to 3. It makes no sense.
Well, anyway, the gist is they keep releasing these content patches, and they extend the main storyline. You really have to do the whole thing in order, unless you buy like the skip potion with real money, at which point you aren't really enjoying the storyline. You're just trying to catch up to your friends.
Yeah. And the storyline isn't that bad. I know I skip through the dialogue every now and then because it's a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
But from the dialogue I've read, it's actually pretty cool. And another thing to look forward to, because I accidentally skipped some of it, when you finish 2.0 and you get to some of the between 2.0 3.0 content, there's this chain of side quests. I think it's Hildebrandt. It's like a detective side quests, and they're really funny. So I would not skip them because they're funny, both in like sight gags and just general humor. So I would make sure to check those out. I stopped playing them because I wanted to actually enjoy them, and I kind of want to just plow through the rest of the content so I can get up to the Heaven's Ward and Stormblood content. So I'm all the side quests that aren't really important to the story, I'm kind of leaving to the end so I can actually enjoy them when I have time, when I can concentrate on them.
I mean, I'm just sort of taking my own time going through the storyline. I mean, I actually, I guess we're not that far up catching up to you because I'm at level 30 and Mitz is at 27 or 28 and playing right now as we speak. So she might, by the end of the podcast, she might have caught up with me. So I got to 30, so I knew I was spending the weekend doing house chores, and I knew on Monday I was starting my new job, which is a topic I'll get to in a minute. But I really, really, really wanted to get to level 30 and get my class specialization as a black mage.
Yep.
Just so I could say I achieved it. It was a nice capper to put on like all the hours that I'd put into the game that week. But at the end of the week, we raided with Mr. Ryu. He transferred his character over. He is a level 52 paladin. I think that's his best class.
I'm 51 paladin.
Oh, so you do have a level 50 plus character.
Yeah, no. So I got to level 40 when I stopped playing before, and then when I took a break from Persona 5, I got up to 51.
Oh, okay, I understand. All right, so I know. So he made us a bunch of equipment because we were pretty low level at the time. So he was able to, without too much effort, craft us some gear that was like level appropriate. And then he turned invisible and he teleported behind me and he said, "Nothing personal, kid," and he tried to attack me.
Did he really?
and so he actually made a macro of that. So like when he's playing his rogue, he just keeps walking up to people and going like, "Nothing personal, kid."
That's amazing. While you were doing your homework, I was learning the way of the blade.
I really enjoy playing games with Mr. Ryu, and I don't get that many opportunities to do it. I'm actually really bad at like coordinating playing games with people because once I have to start like warping my schedule around other people's playtime schedule, it starts to feel like work, and it's like I just don't want to do it anymore.
That was always my problem when I played WoW. So not to take over your segment, but a quick story: when I played WoW, I was playing with some friends, and I couldn't do like play as often as they could. Not because necessarily I had things to do, but because it felt like more of a job. So I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to take a break today. So I'd go in like 2 days later, they're 5-10 levels ahead of me. And I'm like, okay, now I can't level with you anymore. And they're like, hey, we'll start a new character. I'm like, sure. And then I took a little break, and then they were 5-10 levels ahead of me. I'm like, all right, I can't do this. I can't continually do this. The good thing about Final Fantasy XIV, though, like when I'm going to start with my girlfriend, is I can start a new job at level 1. And just follow her. It's not like I need to start a whole new character. I'm still improving my character in other areas.
Yeah, you do have to sort of take it easy and not like wander off and go do your own thing while she's leveling, because the secondary classes, they level up twice as fast, or you get 100% experience bonus on classes that aren't your main or lower level than your main. So I tried to do that with my wife. Like she was playing. I went ahead and I got her onto level 20. And then I went back to play Archer, because Archer is the secondary class you need to get your specialization as a black mage. And without even really trying, just from doing the hunting log and all the things they give you in the game to give you sort of ancillary level up points just for playing, I was already a few levels ahead of her, like as she was going through the main storyline. So
all right, that's something I'll have to keep track of.
Yeah, so I mean, you can always like level a couple of classes in parallel, because I assume you also I forget you also have like a secondary class, I think, right? So
White Mage, I think, is Paladin second, but I'm probably going to just do a few DPS jobs, because she's going to be tanking, so...
Okay. Yeah, so both of my jobs right now are DPS, Black Mage and Archer. Archer eventually becomes Bard, which is surprisingly a DPS class, although it's spec'd more like a support class in Final Fantasy XIV. The other really interesting thing that I noticed is that since I played Final Fantasy Record Keeper, like, I know all the characters, and they tried really hard to translate all the mechanics of the boss fights. Although, like, it's hard to translate that into the old active time battle system, but I kind of know what the gimmicks are of a lot of the fights without even, like, without having watched a video or having played the raids myself in 14. And so it's kind of fun to go through. And, like, some of the relics that I drew from the gacha in Record Keeper are also, like, relic weapons in Final Fantasy XIV. It's like, I already have the Stardust Rod. I already have the relic weapon for the Black Mage. Why do I need to go through this?
The boss and dungeons were one of the things that originally made me stop playing, because I didn't feel like having to party with people I didn't know, because sometimes they can be huge douchebags.
Yeah.
But when I decided to play 14 again, and I went into the dungeons, I'm like, you know what? If they're going to complain... fuck it. Who cares?
Right. I mean, I guess it's part of the point. Like, 14 is really heavily weighted towards you being able to play an MMO as a single-player game, which is really unusual. And it just occasionally forces you to deal with real people. And by the end, when you're dealing with hard content, you should really be... Hopefully, by then, you should have found 3 people that you really know and like to party with.
Or you know your class enough that you can... Like, I'm tanking. And I consider myself a decent tank. Not a good tank, but a decent tank. Enough that, as long as I'm not playing the hardest content, I can do fine.
Right.
And maybe I'll pull too much at times or not pull enough, and then people will complain, and I'll whatever, but at least I can get through the story, at least to play the game to completion.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't know what... so, just for clarification, 14 has 2 different level systems. One is your character level, which just goes from 1 to 60, and when Stormblood comes out, the level cap will be raised to 70. And the other thing is your item level, which is arguably more important as you continue to go, and that's what you get from the increasingly more difficult raid tiers. You get equipment that increases your item level and allows you to survive in the higher raids later on, or even beyond the storyline themselves, and the really high, like the every dungeon and every instance in the game has a hard mode, and sometimes like an extreme mode or a savage mode or some really interestingly named difficulty level above the base. And so you raise your item level to be able to do that. I don't know like what eye level will be required to access the dungeons and play the dungeons in Stormblood.
So from what I've heard about Heaven's Ward, is they're probably going to give you items just like the quests that you start with in Stormblood will probably give you items, so you'll be at the item level you need to be at. To do that content, because that's what Heaven's Ward I heard did. And like my feeling is I don't really like, I just want to do enough now that I can beat the story, and then I'll worry about like the hard modes and the extreme and savage, whatever they're called.
Okay. Well, I mean, it shouldn't be that difficult anyway, because I mean we have a party between the 4 of us. Like, so we have multiple people who can tank, multiple people who can play a healer, and then anybody else can fill in a DPS. That seems like the easiest job to learn how to play. The rotations seem the simplest, so I'm not too worried about it. Plus, we joined my sister-in-law's free company, so we have access to a pretty substantial player knowledge base, so I'm not worried about it at all. And I'm looking forward to playing it some more and talking about it some more. So cool. I hope so I mean, like I said, I've played with Mitz and Mr. Ryu already, but hopefully we'll get to share raid experiences in the podcast pretty soon. Let's see what else. So I beat Spirit Camera. I know I talked about it last week. I didn't expect it to take very long. I needed to play, I think it was an hour and 50 minutes to go through the entire storyline mode. So Lotus, we can lend you a 3DS and you can try it for yourself, and we can watch you spin around in the middle of the room like a fool.
Oh, it'll be the best. Yeah, that's what everyone wants. And like the best, it'll be even better if I can't get direct capture. So we'll just have a webcam of me spinning around, and you can't tell what's going on.
I have one of my favorite videos I've ever uploaded to YouTube, which I believe has never been made public, is of me recording you playing Rhythm Heaven, not the game, just you on a chair.
Yeah, Rhythm Heaven. Yeah. Like, are you recording this? No.
We're such good friends. So
it's just me like chilling in your room, like at your parents' house, just like holding a Wiimote, like getting
increasingly aggravated by the I think it was the shrimp minigame in Rhythm Heaven.
Yeah, it was the shrimp one, but like I think the part of the actual video that you uploaded was me like very slightly getting frustrated. I'm kind of like, I'm not getting this. I'm like, wait a minute,
And,
are you recording
like,
this?
And it's funny because like you're trying very hard to pay attention to the game, and you're like bopping along with the rhythm, trying to keep it, and that's what you can see. That's the art of
It just
that
looks
video.
dumb.
So without any sounds, the spirit camera one will just be you turning in a circle a lot, and then occasionally exclaiming to the camera, which I think is also
take my word, that was scary.
extremely entertaining. So I would say that like the spinning in a circle thing comes up the most when you're fighting a boss, and most of the game is pretty easy except for the final boss, which is like way harder than the rest of the game, and that's when the AR elements really start to get a little tiresome, because I got a little dizzy by the end of it playing the same fight over and over and over again, like chasing the ghost around and trying to find out where it's respawned and where it's teleported to.
Yeah, that was frustrating even in regular Fatal Frame when you would take a picture of a ghost and you just have to stand there spinning around in first-person mode, because if you're third-person, you won't be able to break out the camera in time, and if you're in first-person, you're just making yourself dizzy.
Yeah, so the boss has like one attack where you have to sort of double-click to break them out of the attack and get the zero shot. It's like she starts charging you, and then she stops, and then charges again. And there's two like phases where the lens turns red and you can interrupt her attack. And if you hit the first one, she tries to attack you anyway. And if you wait too long, you basically just have enough time in that little gap between the two phases before your camera recharges for another shot. So you like really have, and it does like a third of your health bar if you screw it up. So that was the primary stumbling block in understanding how to get past the fight.
You know what that vaguely reminds me of is when I was playing Dark Souls' DLC, when I was fighting I guess I won't say his name in case people are bothered by spoilers. It's kind of a spoiler, I guess, but like when I was fighting the DLC boss that is like King Allant in Demon Soul, like the swordsman who's just jumping everywhere, and he has this one attack where he jumps and does a forward flip and swings his sword down, but he does 3 of those in a row. And when I fought him, I did not, like, I'm a tank. I know I should be dodging, but I wasn't. So when I was playing him, I didn't quite have enough stamina. Like, I barely had not quite enough stamina to tank all 3 shots. So what I would do was, it got to the point where I actually blocked, released my shield, quickly put my shield up again, released my shields to get like a sliver of stamina back. It was like the most stressful experience.
I feel like that's partially intentional. Like, they probably know how much stamina you have at that level if you're ready to take on that boss, knowing that it's harder than most of what's in the main storyline.
Yeah,
right?
it was a blast. That was one of those bosses that, even though I kept dying on him, it was, like, unlike some Souls bosses, it was genuinely fun, like, every time, because it's so, like, concentration intensive. Like, you can't screw up, but it's a proper sword fight.
Right. So,
yeah,
anyway,
camera. My bad.
Yes. So, yes, Spirit Camera. Speaking of Dark Souls, it's mildly topical, I guess. Besides that, I guess I'll speak a little bit about Famen Rider.
I just want to mention your Famen Rider comment on Facebook was pretty hilarious.
Oh, the one that I sent
the mummy one.
To Lotus Prince. Yeah. So in the third, so I mentioned before that in the first series of Famen Rider, they're broken up into like 13 episode seasons, and they're not introducing new toys like they are in later series, but every 13 episodes or so they like cycle out the cast a little bit and they bring in a new villain or they change the series up a little bit. And so in the middle of the third season, the villain is this guy General Zoll. He's like the first big authority figure that we get from Shocker. And he's like got this really cool costume. It looks like they put quite a lot of effort into it. It's got like the eye patch. He's got the military costume. He looks like a badass, more or less. And when he cycles out in episode 40, the guy they bring in, Dr. Shinigami, like the name is great. It's amazing, but he looks like a guy dressed in a vampire costume. Like he's got like a crappy comb over, and he looks like he's wearing a cape that he bought for $5 at the costume shop. And he rides around in a wheelchair, and he's got a little magic wand that looks like that he bought it at like the Universal Studios Harry Potter shop, and it just looks horrible. I'm so disappointed at this follow up to General Zoll. But the reference that Pyro is making is that there's an episode in General Zoll's series where they discover that there's an Egyptian pharaoh who somehow buried an ancient treasure near Japan. and they plan to resurrect him so that he can lead them to the treasure. It's worth like 1 billion yen or something, or 10 billion yen or some large number. And so they do it. They create a cyborg body and they resurrect the pharaoh inside the cyborg body. And when they bring him back to life, they realize that he doesn't speak any Japanese and they can't understand him at all. And the entire plot, and I should say that like when he talks, he goes like bada 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 bada. Like, which I think is just Japanese for like blah 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 blah. And the subtitles literally just write that out.
Nice.
Every time he says something like that, it's hilarious.
Actually, that reminds me, when I was watching Kamen Rider, Ryuki with
oh geez, that's a weird
Kamen Rider. Oh geez. No, I was watching Kamen Rider Ryuki with Mr. Ryu, and you know that this was obviously fan subbed, and there was one thing that cracked me up, because this is something that you'll hear every once in a while in any Japanese anything, like the general sound of frustration or exasperation is like mo, and like I had never heard that before at the time, so like a character in the show says it and the subtitle is just MOU, and I'm like, that doesn't help me at all. Like, I don't know what that means. Well, it's like if in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, if they were to do like yare yare dase, and they just write that, it's like I not helping.
You mean what a beautiful duang?
What a beautiful duang. That's my favorite. A Chinese fan who's trying to translate Japanese into English.
I've been told that this is like a common situation for people who are bilingual, that if you talk to somebody who's bilingual, they'll ask you, like, what's an English expression for, like, some common expression in their native language that you have no context for and you won't be able to translate it at all, so it was a meaningless question.
Yeah, I mean, they'll have to tell you, like, kind of what it means. Mm-hmm. Like, so, like, itadakimasu, like, it's always translated as let's eat, because that's, like, about as good as it gets.
Right. So that is one thing I noticed about the series, is that I guess it's kind of interesting to watch 1970s Japanese television, see what they can get away with that would never be possible on television, any major network. Like there's a scene where the monster wants to kidnap a kid. Like that's part of General Zoll's MO. He's always trying to kidnap children because he wants to use them for his subversive machinations. He uses the word subversive in the translation a lot.
Nice.
And so there's a scene where they're trying to kidnap like one particular kid, and they have like a circus, like a monster. They call it a monster autograph session or something. And there's this guy in a clown suit who leads these kids into a room. And by this point, there's a couple of scenes where they lead kids into a van, and that would never show up on television. Especially not in a children's show, unless it was like one of those very special episodes.
Yeah,
but
like
this
Stranger
is just, like,
Danger.
Yeah, basically. So there's an episode where they lead these kids into what they think is like an autograph signing for actors playing monsters, and the monsters get up and they're all like previous Kamen Rider monsters from previous episodes, and they just like beat all the kids up. The kids all like
Jesus.
Then they just leave.
That's hysterical.
It's like, what was the point of that? They're such a bunch of assholes. This is so unnecessary.
Well, they are villains. I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, come on.
I mean, so there was an episode recently where the villain is a fly, and he's got this drug that he has this little fly robot that he flies around, and he sends it into the racing club where Kamen Riders, like his supporters, are hanging out, and he's like pooping the drug into their coffee so that they can take over them, his friends via mind control. And in this like throwaway scene in between acts, the fly monster asks Dr. Shinigami, like, this drug is amazing. We should use it on every person in Japan. He's like, no, we will wait. And that's it.
That's so dumb. Well, I mean, that was like an episode of VR Troopers where, like, they had... I forgot what they did, but they, like, swapped a record in a jukebox or something, or a record player, and it was playing some melody that, like, hypnotized everyone and brought them under mind control, but, like... one or two of the VR troopers happened to be out of the room or something, so they were able to, undo everything and beat the bad guys, and the bad guys never tried that plan again. And I'm like, that was a damn good plan. Like, you lost to a fluke. Like, do it again.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, it seems like... So, I mean, Shocker, to their credit, does resurrect occasionally monsters that were particularly successful, or for no reason at all because they felt like using the costumes again.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're above doing that. It just... I talked about it a little bit during last week's episode. Sometimes the villains just seem so incompetent that you almost can't help but root for them because they're so stupid they become sympathetic.
Yeah, they're like
Shocker,
the underdog, even though they're trying to conquer the world.
like Shocker cannot be construed as sympathetic because they're kidnapping children and beating them up and like all this other crap. So it's probably fine that they're not succeeding.
Yeah, I guess.
So yeah, that was more or less my week. I guess the last big story is that I started my new job today, but I don't have a lot to talk about in that regard, except for the fact that they gave me a company laptop, and it was a Mac, which I'm very disappointed in, because I've never used a Mac in my entire life.
I got to choose between Mac and PC.
Shut the fuck... Anyway. That's nice.
Oh, good for you!
And I chose Mac just because I knew you'd be pissed off that I got to choose, and I chose PC.
I was gonna say, that's really petty of you. That's like me talking to Vice levels of petty, which is like not how normal humans interact on a daily basis. I expect better of you, Pyro. So hopefully I'll have some more stories about that don't involve like my computer soon. But until then, Lotus, why don't you tell me about your week?
Well,
and also Pyro.
Sure. And also, yeah, I guess I'll also tell Pyro. I guess I mainly have 3 things to discuss. The first is I continued a little bit more of American McGee's Grimm. And nice. I gotta say, like, I mean, it's still... Like, the flaws I mentioned that it had last week, they're effectively unavoidable. The game's existence kind of demands these flaws to exist unless you radically change the way the entire game is played. However, this is a thing that was released in weekly installments in sets of 8, 8, and 7. So it was 3, like, seasons. And I gotta say, the 3rd season has a bunch of differences. The first 2 seasons generally were done in the same fashion, but obviously for different fairy tales. But the 3rd season has just a lot more different elements of gameplay going on. Like in Jack and the Beanstalk, you're climbing the beanstalk rather than just running around town and making everything darker. Like, you still do that, but it has variations in the way certain levels are played, which is kind of refreshing. Like, Season 3 has the most variation in this regard. Season 2 experimented with a little of that, but Season 3 is really going into it. Also, with Season 3, with each of the 6 little mini parts of each story you play, they give a title for each part. They give you a percentage of how many items you've corrupted in the level, like, that you could see as you're playing, as opposed to when the level's done, and like, oh, I wonder how I did. So it's kind of nice that they're giving those little bits of gameplay enhancement. One thing I found really amusing, by the way, was the last story I played was Mulan. Like, the game's called Grimm, but they're not all Grimm's fairy tales. Like, Beauty and the Beast, I don't believe was Grimm. That was, a French tale. And Mulan is, Chinese. But what I thought was really interesting is that with Mulan, everything was voiced in Mandarin. And not just... Yeah, and like, not...
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and like, what I thought was particularly clever was not just the story segments, even basic gameplay stuff. Like, when you pick up, like, the secret item, it's just a secret MacGuffin. Like, if you get all the secrets in the episode, then you can look at a gallery. When you pick up the little secret coin, your character will say something like, "Secret found," or like, "Hardly cryptic," or some little sarcastic quip. And like, that was also done in Mandarin. Like, they just did over everything in Mandarin for the Mulan episode. I thought that was really entertaining.
That's cool. It's interesting because when I was listening to last week's podcast, and you were talking about it, I played the first few episodes of Grimm when they came out.
Yeah.
It was like they were episodic. They were like the Telltale games before the Telltale games.
Yeah, even some of the loading screens are like, "Come back!" Like, these are weekly.
Yeah, I didn't. I guess because I was so intent on just like corrupting everything, I didn't even think about the flaws that you were talking about. The fact that obviously the story's going to have to end a certain way because.
Well, the thing is, if you play any of these, you'll probably have a good time. But I'm playing, like, I'm going to try to play all 23 in a row, so you really start to feel it, with one after the other.
Yeah, and I thought they were, like, when I played the first 3 or 4, I thought they were fun, but, and I think I was playing them, trying to play all of them. I got them for some reason. And I did get bored after a while, because they are kind of all the same thing. They're just collectathons in a way. Yeah, corruptathons.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're corruptathons, and like collect the 1 or 2 secret items per stage. Oh, by the way, one thing I appreciate: Season 1. Well, before I even get to that, usually each story is broken up into 6 episodes. But Season 1 had a couple where there were 7 or even 8, And Season 2 was like, no, we're not doing that anymore, and kept everything to 6 parts each. And Season 3, so far, is 6 parts each. And I gotta say, I actually appreciate that, because otherwise, honestly, you're just kind of drawing things out. And there are also some stories that I think they just wanted to have fun with and showcase, but I feel were more than dark enough by themselves. Like, I think I'm going to mention this, but Godfather Death, where the basic idea of that story is these parents have, like, one too many kids. It's like 13 or something, and there's no way we could support all these kids. We're poor enough as it is. We got to find the Godfather for them. And eventually, they find Death. Death just volunteers. And so the kid starts working for Death, but he pisses Death off once, gets a warning, and Death is like, if you piss me off again, like, I'm going to kill you, because I'm Death, and that's the one thing I do. So, the kid pisses Death off again, and he dies. And it's like, you want to make that story darker? Like, okay. Like, I mean, I guess you can, like, I mean, you could still, in a gameplay perspective, you could still make the grass wither and stuff like that, like, from an aesthetic perspective, but it's like, how much are you going to change the story, really? Like, I mentioned last week, a lot of it comes down to characters just kind of being meaner to each other in the dialogue, but with Death, like, there's barely any room for that. It's just kind of like, let's make Death look scarier. Like, I mean, okay, I'll bite, but, like, if your basic idea is, let's make the story more dark and twisted, like, yeah, for some, you don't really have much room. And even in Red Riding Hood, they kind of call that out themselves. Like, they do the traditional version that Americans are used to hearing, where, the huntsman comes and cuts the wolf open and takes the grandma and Little Red Riding Hood out, and it's like, whew, that was a close one. But even in American McGee's Grimm, they just straight up tell you, like, if you've heard the German version or the Chinese version, maybe stick with that one, because it's actually dark. And so it kind of makes this version redundant. It's just like, why don't you just tell us the German version then, where, like, just everybody dies, the end, have fun. You already have that version you're trying to get to with this episode. But even so, like I said, the gameplay is still fun. It's just, like, again, from a, like, some episodes are just redundant by their very existence. But I'm still getting through Grimm. At this point, I am done with 19 of the stories, so there are 4 to go. For some reason, I don't get it. For some reason, they didn't do 24 stories, like 888. They did 23. I don't know what the logic was behind that. It might have been a timely thing, because these were episodes released weekly on GameTap, which means that I didn't play them except for the free one, because I'm like, I'm not signing up for GameTap just for this. And it turns out that I didn't need to, because you can now get them on GOG and probably Steam. But I remember there was an episode, like, oh geez, it wasn't The Boy Who Knew No Fear. That was the free episode. There was some episode that had, like, nothing to do with the Halloween aesthetic, but they really pushed the Halloween thing hard. Oh, it was The Master Thief. And they pushed Halloween hard on that episode, and I'm like, I guess this was released on the week of Halloween or something, because, like, out of context, it doesn't make much sense. They closed it out with A Christmas Carol and pushed Christmas hard, but that's the whole point anyway, so it's like, well, okay, I understand that. That aside, I've been playing a lot of Skies of Arcadia. Before I went back to Rule of Rose, I had basically a 2-month hiatus where I was just totally taking a break and not uploading any Let's Play content, just brief gameplay footage with no commentary. I'm like, hey, look at me, I'm still alive. Now I'm not really uploading much in the way of my channel, but I actually am working on stuff this time around. So at this point, Skies of Arcadia has a wonderful plot, but the ultimate goal of the game is kind of like Final Fantasy 1. It's like, get the 6 crystals. So at this point, I have 2 of them. But I'm moving along. At this point, I have edited 7 installments, but I've recorded 19. And the editing can get a lot quicker than the recording themselves, because I'll show off new enemies as I approach them. Or if I ever have a special move I'm doing for the first time, then I'll show that, or a new magic spell or something, but otherwise I'll just edit out the fights, so when it screen transitions into black for the fight scene to start, I'll just transition right back out to when I'm done. So just tonight, I said I edited part 7. that was an hour and 10-minute installment, and when I was done with it, it was like 45 minutes because I did a little bit of leveling during the fact. So I'm trying to make this.
That's Skies of Arcadia for you.
It is. The problem I have with Skies of Arcadia is that there's a lot of really cool special moves that are unskippable. You know, it's like in the original Disgaea, a lot of what you want to do is crowd control attacks. So you're going to be seeing the same animations over and over again, and it can really just melt your brain. And in later Disgaea games, they learned their lesson and allowed you to turn off just all animations. You know, super crowd clearing attack, like all it shows is your character swiping a sword and then just a bunch of numbers show up over all the enemies. I'm like, that's how you do it. You know, I'll watch these moves when I want to. With Skies of Arcadia, the moves look damn cool, but like, I'm doing a Let's Play here. Like, I don't want to be up all night to like just watching Alpha Storm,
That's how I felt whenever I played Tales game.
Yep.
Or the Grandia. Grandia 2 had stuff like that as well.
Okay, I know like nothing about Grandia because that was also a popular RPG series.
Well, not that popular.
Yeah,
not as popular as the others, or as other RPG series, but like I remember hearing that name around. Like that was one of those things I never touched in my life because I didn't have a PlayStation. So it's like
you weren't one of the cool kids.
Yeah, I was an N64 kid.
What gave it away?
Oof. Ugh. Is it hot in here or? All right. So the last thing I'll mention that I did was I had said in a few weeks ago that I had streamed a Sonic the Hedgehog 1 stream to stream. I streamed Sonic the Hedgehog 1, and I used like a reset exploit to get all the Chaos Emeralds, because to hell with getting those legitimately. That's just such a pain in the ass. Well, this past week I did Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and I actually did the run completely legitimately, because with Sonic 2, there's a code you can enter to just be able to turn to Supersonic just immediately when you get 50 rings. And you can also do the reset exploit if you really want to keep grinding away at bonus stages on the very first level, for example. But I actually did the game totally legit, and it felt great to actually not only do that, but do it on camera. What was interesting was that the last... it gets to the point where I knocked out 3 special stages just in Emerald Hill Zone, and there was room to do even more. But in later stages, it gets harder to even find goalposts, let alone have 50 rings when you get to them, and the special stages get harder. So as it turns out, I actually did get all 7 emeralds, but it was at literally the last possible goalpost in the game, like on Wing Fortress Zone, and I was just able to go supersonic, like just for the boss of Wing Fortress Zone. I was like, whatever, you saw it. So I got the supersonic ending as well. So that was super cool. For
literally super cool.
It was super cool.
Super.
50 rings. So for a later stream, I'm debating doing Sonic CD, but the problem with that is I am going to tell you right now, I'm not beating that game. Sonic CD is crazy hard, and even if somehow I did pull it off, there is no freaking way that I'm getting all the emeralds. Like, Sonic CD is a brutal game, even though it's really cool. I also kind of want to do Sonic 3D or 3D Blast, depending whether you're playing Saturn or Genesis. That's a game I can get through, but it could get really tedious grinding away for rings to get to the special stage. And I'm also looking forward to doing Sonic 3 and Knuckles, because that Sonic 2 is, I would say, the most faithful to the gotta go fast mentality, but Sonic 3 and Knuckles is just so good with what they do with it. So I definitely look forward to working my way up to that, and then having the big payoff with the super final boss. So that's effectively been my week. So at this point, I'll go ahead and do Vice's weigh in, which we did not do last week. So Vice has definitely gained, maintained, or lost weight this week. No doubt about that in my mind. So,
well, we can just continue the trend of not doing a weigh in.
That is true, but I guess I broke the streak. Yeah. All right, let's just... How about we start the recording now? We'll restart the whole podcast and try to remember what we said.
All right.
Don't trip at the finish line. Come on, we're so close.
All right. So at this point, though, I think we have time for questions. I somehow suspect at least one of these will be able to get through, I think, rather quickly. But first of all, we have one from School Filmer. Imagine, if you will, one day you wake up and soon find out that you have been shrunk to the size of a bug overnight. What would you do? My guess is probably die quickly.
I mean, if we're not becoming a bug, then probably call for help in some way.
Yeah, if you're able to get to your phone, like
find all the really dusty crumbs that we always leave around and make like a help sign.
Yeah, there's that peanut I dropped.
Yeah, I guess the first and most important thing would be to like try to notify my wife that I'm still here, so she doesn't like roll over on me.
Yeah, avoiding feet and butts and anything that could kill me.
Which at this point,
including bugs themselves, because I'm pretty sure the bugs would try to kill me too.
Not to mention, bugs are like designed to be able to defend themselves, like
against other bugs,
against similar sized things.
The environment, yeah.
Not to mention, defense aside, like I mean, there's a reason they make giant bugs the villains of a lot of like horror movies. If I saw like an ant that was my size, I would just immediately have a heart attack and die. Like that's just the absolute worst.
It'd be me with spiders, but I agree. If I saw a human-sized spider, I'd be like, no.
Yeah,
this
honestly,
isn't
for me,
it's like I can barely handle a regular-sized centipede as a regular-sized.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Like honestly, like I'm more afraid of, like I'm not afraid of ants. I'm afraid of spiders. But if I did see a human-sized ant, like I think we're done. Like there's just, I mean, like just imagine EDF. You know? Like,
yeah, I was just gonna say call EDF and have them eradicate.
I'm gonna take him out in one shot.
Your menace.
If you're still tiny, then call the Superman replacement squad from Kandor or something. Like isn't that the microscopic bottle city that has all the Kryptonians in DC Comics?
Oh jeez, break that out.
I mean, the real answer to this question is that we hope we would have watched Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
I was thinking that
beforehand.
We'll befriend an ant and fight a scorpion.
So we know what to do.
That's right. We'll find that one like not Oreo cookie in the backyard and be like, we could just eat this for weeks. I remember I loved that scene in the movie. I'm like, I wish that I could have that situation, like this cookie that's like way the hell bigger than I could deal with, just eating icing by the fistful. Like, oh my god.
How did you feel the day you discovered that cookie cakes were like a real thing that you could buy at the store?
You know, like I almost never had them in my life because my mom just never bought them. But just the idea of seeing like a giant one where it's like, here, it's just icing. Like, oh man, like here we go. That's what I want. Live in a little Lego castle. I would have to make one first, though.
Simpler times.
There's no air conditioning in this Lego castle.
I hadn't thought about that.
This is bullshit. All right, so the second question I suspect might be the quick one. Lazrule asks, and this is a two-parter: have you ever consumed jalapeno juice, and have you ever killed anyone?
I want to kind of drag this out now that you've said that.
Exactly.
And find a way to talk about it.
My first is like, shouldn't this guy be working on Shut Up and Jam Gaiden 2 instead of asking questions on your YouTube videos?
Actually, the funny thing is, speaking of not quite the same thing, but you know how we only tend to get through like one or maybe two questions a week, so it could take a while to get to people's questions. It's like, have you already gone over my question and I missed it, or did you skip it because it's like a goofy question? No, we're coming to it. And he also
and I like goofy questions.
So I know, and he also pointed out, by the way, that he's got to be the only person on planet Earth who's ever asked this specific, like, jalapeno juice and have you killed anyone. So now, whenever anyone Googles jalapeno juice and killing someone, he'll come right up, for sure.
The funny thing is, like, so I listened to it, not to talk about something completely different, but there's another podcast I listened to, and, like, one of the questions they got was, would you eat a 2-inch tall person for $10 million or something like that?
Jesus.
And it's such an interesting conversation they had. So it's like,
would you become a Titan?
I love all these questions people ask about video games and are like interested in them, but I also like stupid questions because they can be just as fun to answer. So my answer to these questions are both no, unless you count masturbation as killing people, and then I'm going to stop there.
That gets into all sorts of politics that people are probably surprisingly divided on.
Well, anyway, I have never directly consumed jalapeno juice. I did eat a pretty spicy jalapeno pepper today for dinner.
Whoa! In preparation of this question, no doubt.
Not by itself. I did not anticipate this question. This hard-hitting journalistic attack. I have not killed anybody to my knowledge, at least not through my direct impact.
Yeah.
I'll count like butterfly effect style.
That's a very interesting point. I haven't killed anyone that I know of.
Nor have
actually,
I.
for the jalapeno juice, I refuse to get not anywhere near spicy food, but not only does spicy food do the bad things that it does to most normal people, but I also get the hiccups when I eat spicy food. Like,
I see.
Throat spicy food like jalapenos and Indian curry. It's really weird. So I'll eat it and then I'll just start hiccuping.
I did
So
get
I
the
would
hiccups
never.
while I was eating that sandwich today with a jalapeno in it, and I kept insisting it was because the sandwich was dry, and they kept making fun of me saying it was because I was eating spicy food. And I was like, no, it's the bread.
It's always happened to me. So Lotus, why don't you answer the questions? Have you ever killed anyone
Not that
while
I'm-
drinking jalapeno juice?
I didn't say while. Just have you ever done this and have you ever done
Well,
this?
I'm asking you the question of while.
I'm asking the questions here. No. I have not killed anyone that I'm aware of, and I have never drunk jalapeno juice. And, like, aside from what spicy food does to people, that's barely even relevant for me, because, like, I just don't handle spice well. Like I will eat...
I mean,
like, I'll
if
go
it's
to,
not
like,
a plain
Taco
burger,
Bell
you won't
and
eat
order...
it.
What?
If it's not a plain burger, you won't eat it.
No, I mean, seriously. Like, I'll go to, like, Taco Bell and get, like, a taco with nothing but meat in it, and I'll be like, ooh, that's kind of hot. And everyone looks at me like, are you freaking serious? I can't deal with heat of, like, any kind when it comes to, like, spicy food. So that's just not even, like, relevant to me.
So,
like,
do you think Vice has eaten jalapeno juice or killed someone? Since he's not here, we have to answer the question on his behalf.
I'm not at liberty to say.
Oh, that's a good answer.
He may have killed jalapeno juice and consumed a person, but I don't think he's done it in the other way.
How do you consume someone without killing them? That's
You fuse with them like Piccolo and Nail.
that's not the answer I was expecting.
You know what? This is getting off topic, but there was this.
There
Now
is
we're
really no
getting off
on topic for this kind of
But no,
question.
like there was a Japanese-only Dragon Ball Z RPG for the Super Famicom that I remember had mediocre translation back when I was in high school or college, and for the secret boss, to get to that, you actually could do a thing that never happens in DBZ canon. Like after Piccolo fused with Nail, he severely powered up. But I forgot how you do it, but there's something you could do where you also fuse with Dende, and it's like, what? It just makes, it's just like,
Nice.
if you ever watch the show, it's like, that makes no sense, but who cares? You get to fight Super Saiyan Vegeta at the end, which also makes no sense, because the last boss of the game is Frieza. So it's like, wow, what? It's kind of amazing.
So, on the jalapeno juice side, I will say that while I was living out in Chicago, we went to this ramen place that offers what they call Hell Ramen. And it has levels. Like, they started out offering this Hell Ramen, and after 20 people managed to finish the Hell Ramen challenge, they made a level 2, and then a level 3, and by the time we finally got to the restaurant, it was, for our dinner, it was all the way up to level 5.
Oh my god.
Level 5 was like scorpion peppers and ghost peppers, and like
Wow.
basically every pepper available, aside from maybe like the Carolina Reaper. And I guess 20 people haven't eaten that and survived yet, for there to be level 6. Just finishing level like 1 or 2, drinking the broth feels like you're like drinking fire. It's just like a waste of time. So that's the closest I've gotten to jalapeno juice, I suppose.
All right.
Unless this has some like syntactical or colloquial meaning that I don't understand.
I mean, it's Tales of Games, so you really never know. The final gun is an acronym that doesn't stand for anything, so, who the hell knows?
I mean, jalapeno juice is an acronym that doesn't stand for anything. A long acronym.
Nah, because they would do J period A period, like, which they did for Final Gun.
Hey, true Doom murder heads would understand what they were talking about without having to require these fancy schmancy periods.
That's true. And by the way, just regarding them working on Barkley 2, like every once in a while they do link to a Twitch stream of somebody doing like sprite art or something like that, or testing out a level. It actually is quite entertaining to watch. One of the guns looked like a pair of jeans, like, and the gun barrel was like the zipper opening, like at the waist part. It's like hysterical.
I am willing to wait any amount of time for this game.
I know, like I'm super
it's fine.
hyped.
You're going to be like 80 years old and you're still going to be waiting.
Oh, dude. No, I'll be
even older, man, Stompy.
My only regret is that they did not meet the Kickstarter goal of putting an ad for their game into like the actual Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, the $500,000 required to purchase a 30-second spot at the Super Bowl.
Dude, that would have
been
killed. That would have been the freaking best.
That would have been a great time to debut the remake of the Final Fantasy VII remake commercial.
That was
they did.
hysterical. Like, I watched the video, I'm like, wow, they put more effort into that than I thought. And then I looked at it next to the FF7 actual ad, and it is like
wow,
shot
they
for
put
shot.
even more effort into this than I thought they did.
And what also cracked me up is that it was subtitled in Al Bhed. I'm like, yes. You guys are freaking... And you know what's funny is that, like, Al Bhed was kind of funny when the first Barkley game came out, because it's like, aha, like Final Fantasy X. Like, I mean, I guess Final Fantasy X does have a remaster now, but now that it's 2017, I really wonder how many people would just offhand know what Al Bhed is. It just cracks me up. Like, now it's funny because it's esoteric as well.
We should survey that. I'll stand on a corner in Manhattan and just survey everyone that walks by and say, "Do you know Al Bhed?"
Well, you have to ask in Al Bhed.
Yeah, right. Like, you know what that reminds me of is there was this you know the animation studio Trigger who did I think they did Gurren Lagann, right, and like Kill la Kill. They also did like this really goofy YouTube show called Inferno Cop. It's like the greatest thing you'll ever see. But there was one episode where there's writing on some stone tablet or something like that, and this is something that I didn't get, even though I'd seen what it was referencing, but somebody in the comments section was like, wait a minute, that writing, is that Grongi? And, like, if you don't know what that is, which actually I don't think either of you do, even though you're watching comment, like, what Grongi is remember that Inferno Cop came out in, like, 2014, 2015, something like that. Grongi is the made-up language that the monsters used in Kamen Rider Kuga, like from the 90s. Like, who the hell would ever understand that? Like, I even saw this show, and there's no way I would recognize that. Like, it's great. Like, I love references like that are just so stupid. It's like, let's see the 10 people who get this. It just cracks me up. But, yeah.
So, yeah, we did actually spend a lot of time on this question, after all.
Yeah, so there you go. Take that, Lazarel, but you didn't think we'd spend time on this question. So I'm clever. So that's the show for this week. So we want to thank all of our fans who contributed questions. And by the way, please do keep contributing questions, because I think we're at this point down to our last, like, 4 maybe. So we could definitely use some more questions all the time. Remember, this could be about anything. It could be
silly, stupid.
Yeah, we get lots
serious.
of stuff about gaming, but the 2 questions we had today were, stuff that you don't get to hear otherwise, and we don't normally expect. So,
would you rather's are also good.
Yeah, I mean, go for it. Please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own on YouTube and SoundCloud pages. And while there, please give us thumbs up, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes specifically for the 5-star. It helps us promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement keeps the show going. You can also catch us on Thursdays on our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the in-depth look at this week in pop culture. Finally, you obviously don't need to worry about finding Vice the Bold on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, and Twitter. I mean, what's the point? You could follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince, as well as my Twitter page, @Lotus Prince. And if you're interested in seeing Patreon-exclusive streams or catching my videos early, then you can hit me up on my Patreon channel, which is patreon.com/LotusPrince.
You can find me wherever PyroJackFrost is.
All right.
So you can find him inside every Persona game and...
Yes.
Every Mega 10 game. Yeah.
Yes, that is actually me. They actually brought me to Japan so they could mocap me
Wow.
for PyroJackFrost.
they mocapped you for the original NES Mega 10 games.
Yep.
Yes.
Or am I the mocap of Jack Frost?
Nani.
I highly doubt that's the case. So, you can find me as OldManStompy basically everywhere except on Steam. I'm not OldManStompy on Steam, so don't look for me there. I actively try to avoid friending people I might know on Steam because I don't want people to know when I'm playing video games. Otherwise, you can also contact Vice and he'll call me on the phone and tell me about it. So,
we'll be friends with you through Vice.
Yes.
You know, Andrew called. Vice called me yesterday.
Yeah, we could experience OldManStompy vicariously.
He called you yesterday, but isn't your name OldManStompy?
Yes, he called. That's funny. You're a funny guy. That's why we hang out.
Anyway, thank you all so much for listening. Until next time, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Cheers.